She was only 15, and then everything went quiet. Her heart, her breath, the noise of the room, all of it slipped away like water through the fingers. While doctors moved quickly and her family whispered her name, something else was happening. Something bigger than the walls around her. Her soul was crossing that thin, invisible line between life and death, and there inside a silence that felt endless. She saw what no one expects to see: Jesus. Just for her still has time. It was a warning for everyone who still has time. She could see herself lying there, still as a photograph, yet she was standing too. Somehow awake in a different way. The room blurred at the edges, like a dream losing its shape. The sound dialed down softer and softer, until even the beeping monitors were just memories. Darkness came not as a threat, but as a doorway. She felt a pull. Gentle at first, like the tide catching your feet at the shore, then stronger, drawing her down a tunnel that seemed to have no end. Her chest tightened, fear and curiosity braided together. Am I gone, she wondered? Is this where it ends or starts? And then a light, not a harsh glare, but a living light, golden, warm and somehow more real than anything she had ever touched. Peace slid over her like a blanket just out of the dryer. In that glow, someone stepped forward. She knew him before she knew how to know it was Jesus. He didn't need a name tag. Her heart recognized him like a child recognizes home. He reached out his hand, and when his eyes met hers, the questions inside her went still. Do not be afraid, he said. It is not your time. But I will show you what is coming before 2030. You must remember, you must tell them. She nodded, not because she was brave, but because his presence made fear impossible. The darkness lifted, and a scene opened like a theater curtain. The ground shook as if some sleeping giant turned over in its bed. Mountains split in jagged lines, bridges swayed, and roads cracked open like old paint. Water rushed where water did not belong, into streets' homes, schools lifting cars like toys and carrying them away. Flames sprinted across hillsides, crowns of orange, climbing trees in a night that glowed too brightly. People ran, some shouted names that were lost in the roar. Some stood frozen hands over mouths, as if stillness might change the outcome. Sirens tried to be louder than fear, and failed. She wanted to cover her eyes. Why she didn't say it out loud. But it rose inside her all the same. Jesus stood beside her not far. Not distant, but near enough that if she reached out, she could have touched his sleeve. These are signs, he said. Not the end, the warning. The earth is aching, creation is groaning. Few will listen until the ground itself speaks. But the ground will speak. The waters will speak. Fire will speak. Remember, this warnings are mercy, dressed as noise. She watched as a mother pulled a child from a window. A stranger gave a coat to a shaking boy, and neighbors who had never learned each other's names carried water together in a line. Even in ruined threads of kindness held, the view changed like wind flipping a page. Streets crowded with anger and fear. Flags of different colors waving, faces, hard voices raised. In some places, soldiers marched. In others, shelves stood empty, and people argued over bread. Screens glowed with headlines that felt like alarms. Distrust spread faster than news. Families turned into teams, teams turned into tribes, and tribes looked at each other, like mirrors that told lies. She felt a heaviness, the kind you feel before a storm breaks. Jesus' voice settled the air again. Humanity will chase power and forget love. He said they will cling to what is easy to hate, because hate feels like certainty when the ground is moving. But those who hold to me, they will become a different kind of flame. They will be shelter. They will be bread. They will be bridges over waters that rise. She watched a girl share the last of her food with an old man on a bench. She saw a medic kneel in a street to help a stranger who had shouted at him an hour earlier. She saw quiet acts nobody posted. Nobody praised kindness that didn't need an audience. She wanted to ask, do we live through this? The words formed, but didn't need to leave her mouth, because he answered what she hadn't said. Do not measure life by what breaks. Measure it by what holds. Do not measure days by the noise of fear. Measure them by what you choose when fear is loud. Something in her loosened like a knot being untied. The vision moved again, darkness at first, but a different kind of dark, quieter and almost expectant, like a room with the lights off, waiting for someone to flip the switch. A candle lit, then 2, then 10, 1,000. She saw people kneeling in living rooms and hospital hallways and parking lots, in fields under open sky. They cried without shame. They lifted hands without fear of who was watching. She saw hardened faces soften like clay in warm water. She saw pride crack and mercy pour in. It didn't look organized, it looked alive. Jesus smiled, not the kind you use to be polite, but the kind that says, I know the end of this story. Where fear rises, I will raise hope, he said before 2030. Darkness will try to speak the loudest. It will not have the last word. There will be a waking, a stirring in hearts that thought they were stone. Those who feel far will find themselves near. Those who are blind will blink and see. Remember, light never argues with darkness. It just shines, and darkness moves. She realized the awakening didn't look like perfect people in perfect buildings. It looked like ordinary people saying simple prayers and then doing simple good over and over. Until the simple became holy. She wanted to stay in that glow forever, to stretch this moment until it reached the edges of everything. Do I have to go back? The question surprised her. Because a day earlier, she would have given anything to stay. Jesus' eyes held a kindness that made the answer bearable. You are not finished, he said. Go tell them not with speeches, but with a life that refuses to echo fear. Tell them that warnings are mercy. Tell them that love is stronger than the loudest. Headline, tell them that hope is not a mood. Hope is a person, and I am with them. The light drew her closer. Closer then, the world tilted. She fell, but not like falling from a height. More like settling back into a story she'd once paused. Cold air touched her face. A weight returned to her chest. The heavy, ordinary weight of being a body again. A beep scratched the silence. Another answered it. Her eyes opened. The ceiling had corners. The lights were too bright. A hand squeezed hers, like someone trying to wake a sleeping phone. A familiar face blurred by tears, bent close, saying her name, like it was the only word that mattered. She tried to speak. The first sound was a rough whisper. I'm here. It wasn't eloquent. But it was true. The room smelled like antiseptic and coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. The clock on the wall did the only magic it knows, moving forward 1 minute at a time. She felt both smaller and larger than before, like a note in a song that had just learned about the whole symphony. Days passed, some noisy, some gentle when she finally told them. She didn't start with the biggest parts. She started with the simple ones. The warmth of the light, the way fear got quiet when Jesus spoke, the look in people's eyes when kindness found them in the worst moment of their life. She kept the rest like seeds in her pocket, because seeds need time in the right ground. Then she spoke the warning. Before 2030, she said, signs will shake the ground and the water, and our sense of control. Fear will try to make a home in our voices. But listen, warnings are love that refuses to be silent. Don't waste them, she told them about the first vision. The earth that groaned like an instrument out of tune, and how even in the shaking, unseen hands held people together. She told them about the second vision, the pull toward power, the trick of anger, the way hate pretends to be truth when truth is hard. And she told them about the third, the rising of light, not from stages or spotlights, but from kitchens, buses, sidewalks, and bedsides when she spoke about Jesus. She did not decorate the story. She just said he was there. She told them how his voice didn't bully fear. It just made fear unnecessary. She told them how hope felt, like a person you could lean on. She told them he called her back, not to prove a point, but to live one. And then she said the part that pressed on her the most. You don't have to wait for a disaster to become kind. You don't have to wait for a headline to become brave. Start now if the ground is steady today. Use steady ground to lift someone. If your shelf is full today, share with someone whose shelf is empty. If your voice is strong today, speak for someone whose voice is tired. She didn't pretend to be a prophet or a preacher or anything other than a girl who saw what she saw. But sometimes the truest messengers don't carry titles. They carry stories, and stories are doors. The people who heard her, some nodded. Some argued inside their own heads. Some cried quietly because something in them recognized the shape of what she described. She didn't have answers to every question. When someone asked, "Why will these things happen?" she said, "I don't know all the reasons. I only know what I saw and who was with me when I saw it." When someone asked, "What if I'm too afraid?" she said, "Me too sometimes." But fear is not a map, love is. She was 15. She still liked silly jokes and music, too loud in the kitchen. She still forgot where she left her shoes. Holiness and ordinary made room for each other. At night, she would close her eyes and remember the light. She'd hear again the way Jesus said, "Do not be afraid." Sometimes she'd cry. Not sad tears, but the kind that water. Something growing, she'd think about the mother, handing a child through a window, the medic kneeling in the street, the crowd that became a prayer. And she'd think about you, about the people she hadn't met yet. Hearing this story in a room somewhere, on a bus in a kitchen, in a season when the world felt thin and loud, and too much, so here it is. As plainly as she can say it. Before 2030, the world will shake. Some of it will be nature shouting. Some of it will be us forgetting how to be kind. But the louder fear gets, the simpler the instructions become. Love your neighbor. Feed the hungry. Tell the truth without a sword in your mouth. Build tables that fit more people. Light a candle when the power goes out. Light too, and when someone asks why, say, because light doesn't argue with darkness. It just shines. She paused the day she told it all for the first time. Her hands were still, her voice was steady. Jesus showed me, she said. He showed me what is coming and who is coming with us through it. I don't know how many days we have. I only know what to do with the day in my hand. Prepare your heart. Prepare your home. Prepare your habits not with panic, with purpose. If you're listening now and something in you is tight, the knot that keeps your shoulders high and hear this part again. Warnings are mercy. Mercy says, wake up before you crash. Mercy says, turn the wheel now, not later. Mercy says there's still time to be who you meant to be. That's not fear talking. That's love refusing to leave you where you are. She took a breath that felt like the first breath after a long swim. He's coming back, she whispered. Not like a threat, more like a promise you can build a life on. And there is still hope for anyone who wants the light. She looked up, as if the ceiling might peel away and show the sky. Behind it, maybe she heard the beeping monitor. The hallway cart squeaking by, the hum of the air vent. Maybe everything sounded ordinary again. But once you've seen the light, ordinary is just another word for waiting for the switch. So take this story with you. Don't hold it like a secret. Hold it like a lantern. Lift it high enough for someone else to see the ground at their feet if the earth shakes. You'll still have each other's hands. If fear shouts, you'll still have a voice that knows the sound of peace. And when the dark tries to be the whole sky, remember, a candle doesn't need to be the sun to end the night. It just has to be lit. She was only 15, but the one who walked with her is older than time and closer than breath, he told her to tell us. So now you know.